When seeing children selling flowers, Millionaire discovers he was deceived by his own family. Richard Montgomery was observing through the tinted window of his executive car when something caught his attention in the central square of Crystal Springs. Two children, a girl of approximately 6 and a boy who couldn't be more than 9, were selling flowers to passers-by under the scorching Massachusetts summer heat. It was the boy's gaze that struck him like lightning. That intense blue, almost translucent, was the same he saw in the mirror every morning, the same shade he had inherited from his grandfather, and that his father had also carried. A blue so characteristic that it had almost become a trademark of the Montgomerys. Richard felt his blood freeze in his veins. "Stop the car, Jerome," he ordered his driver, who promptly obeyed. Without waiting for the vehicle to come to a complete stop, Richard was already opening the door. His $3,000 Italian suit was completely disheveled when he approached the children, who instinctively backed away. "Would you like to buy some flowers, mister?" asked the girl, with a sweet voice and a simple accent, holding a small bouquet of daisies already wilted from the heat. Richard couldn't take his eyes off those eyes. The girl had brown eyes, but the shape of her face, the slightly pointed chin, were identical to Lisa's. And the boy could have been himself, at 9 years old. What's your name?" he asked, his voice breaking. The boy, suspicious, took a step forward, as if to protect his sister. "My name is Michael, and this is my sister Claire. Are you going to buy flowers or not?" Richard felt his heart race. Michael and Claire. The names Lisa had always said she would give to the children they would have together. Before he discovered he was sterile, before he accused her of cheating when she announced her pregnancy, before he kicked her out of the house, pregnant and alone, under the silent applause of his sister Victoria. "I'll take them all," he said, taking his wallet from his pocket and handing a $100 bill to the boy. "Keep the change." The children's eyes widened. "Are you sure? They're just street flowers," said Michael, with a maturity that shouldn't belong to a child of that age. "I'm sure. Where do you live?" he asked, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. That's when a middle-aged woman hurriedly approached. "Michael, Claire, what did I tell you about talking to strangers?" The woman looked at Richard suspiciously. "I'm sorry, sir, but we need to go." "But Mrs. Connie, he bought all the flowers," exclaimed Claire, excited. Richard still tried to say something, but the woman had already gathered the children and was quickly leading them away. He observed as they walked away, feeling unable to move. "Sir, is everything all right?" Jerome had gotten out of the car and was now by his side. "No, Jerome, nothing is all right," he replied, without taking his eyes off the children who were disappearing into the crowd. "I need you to find out everything about those children. Everything." Richard Montgomery, 43, owner of the largest real estate development company in Massachusetts, had always known exactly what he wanted and how to get it. At that moment, however, he felt that his entire life had been built on a lie. Back in his luxurious apartment in downtown Boston, Richard couldn't get the image of the boy's blue eyes out of his head. 10 years had passed since he had expelled Lisa from his life, convinced by medical reports of his own infertility. "It's impossible for you to be pregnant by me, Lisa. All the tests confirm I'm sterile," he had shouted on that fateful night. "Richard, I never cheated on you. I'm carrying your children, twins. How can you believe that?" "Enough lies," he had interrupted her, while his sister Victoria observed the scene with an expression that he now recognized as satisfaction. "I want you out of this house by tomorrow." Lisa left that same night under heavy rain, taking only a small suitcase. He blocked her number, asked security not to let her into the complex, and used his influence to ensure she couldn't get a job in any significant company in the city. It was the least he could do to punish such betrayal. Except now, 10 years later, those blue eyes haunted him. The next day, Richard cancelled all his meetings, something he had never done in his entire career. Jerome was more than a driver. He was an ex-private investigator who had worked for him for years. If there was someone who could discover the truth, it was him. So, he asked as soon as Jerome entered his office late in the afternoon. I found them, sir. The children live in a temporary shelter run by a non-profit organization in the outskirts of the city. They're under the provisional guardianship of Connie Oliveira, a former social worker. Richard felt his stomach sink. And Lisa? Jerome hesitated. Their mother. She has been detained for 3 months. Detained? Richard almost shouted. Why? She was arrested for attempting to steal food from a supermarket. Milk, bread, fruit, basic things. She already had a prior offense for the same reason. The judge wasn't understanding the second time. Richard felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. Lisa, the woman he had once loved more than anything, arrested for trying to feed her children. The children he had denied. And are you sure they're my children? Jerome handed him a folder. Birth certificate. Michael and Claire Montgomery Silva. Born 9 years ago, 2 months after she left the mansion. Non-identical twins. The mother. To never registered the father's name. Richard opened the folder with trembling hands. There it was, in black and white. In the father field. Absent. He felt a wave of shame and remorse so intense that he needed to sit down. My children, he murmured, running his fingers over the certificates. How did she manage to survive all these years? From what I discovered, she worked as a cleaning lady, waitress, saleswoman, always informal jobs since she couldn't get references or complete documentation for something better. In the weeks before her detention, she was selling crafts, hand flowers with the children in the square. And my sister? Asked Richard, feeling a suspicion grow. Mrs. Victoria, what about her? Did she know about this? I don't have that information, sir. Richard got up, walking to the window that offered a panoramic view of the city. I want to visit the shelter, discreetly, arrange it. 2 days later, Richard was standing in front of the gate of Hope Haven, a simple house transformed into a temporary shelter for children. He wore casual clothes, jeans and a simple button-down shirt, something he rarely wore. He carried a bag with donations, the perfect excuse to enter. Good morning, I've come to bring some donations, he said to the woman who answered the intercom. Inside the shelter, children ran through the small courtyard. Some played with old toys, others just talked in small groups. That's when he saw them again. Michael was sitting under a tree reading a visibly worn book. Claire played with a one-armed doll close to her brother, as if he were her safe harbor. You can leave the donations over there, said Connie, the same woman from the square, pointing to a table. We appreciate your generosity. Actually, Richard hesitated. I'd like to volunteer. I have some free time and thought I could help. Connie examined him with suspicion. You don't seem like the type who has free time or who volunteers at shelters. Richard smiled nervously. Appearances can be deceiving. I'm reevaluating my priorities. I can help with tutoring, small repairs, whatever is needed. We are short on male volunteers, said Connie, still suspicious. The children need positive male role models. But I'm warning you, any suspicious behavior, and you're out, and we'll need your documents and references. Of course, no problem, said Richard, trying to hide his relief. In the following weeks, Richard began visiting the shelter 3 times a week. He created a convincing story. He was a college professor on sabbatical. Gradually, he approached all the children, but especially Michael and Claire. Michael was reserved, observant, and protective. He had a sharp intelligence and loved books. Claire was sweet and talkative, but showed an emotional fragility that broke Richard's heart. Both constantly asked when their mother would return. One afternoon, while helping Michael with math, the boy looked at him intently. You have the same eyes as me. Richard felt his heart race. That's true, he replied cautiously. It's an interesting coincidence. My mom says I inherited my eyes from my father, continued the boy. She always says he had the most beautiful eyes she'd ever seen. Did you know your father? Michael shook his head negatively. He didn't want us. Mom said he thought she had cheated on him, but it wasn't true. She never lied to anyone. Richard felt a lump in his throat. I'm sure your mom is an honest person, he managed to say. Are you married? Do you have children? Asked the boy, abruptly changing the subject. No, I don't have children, replied Richard, feeling the bitter irony of the statement. At least none that I know of. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out now continuing. The connection with the children grew with each visit, but at the same time Richard investigated his own past. A doubt consumed him. If he wasn't sterile, why did all the tests indicate otherwise? One morning, while reviewing old documents in his home office, his housekeeper, Mrs. Margaret, who had worked for the family for decades, entered bringing coffee. "Are you looking for something specific?" she asked, seeing him surrounded by folders and papers. "My medical tests from 10 years ago, the ones that indicated I was sterile." Mrs. Margaret hesitated, placing the tray on the desk. "You were never sterile," she said finally. Richard raised his head abruptly. "What are you saying?" The elderly woman took a deep breath. "Your sister, Mrs. Victoria. I saw her switching your test results. She paid the doctor to falsify the reports." Richard's world collapsed. "Why did you never tell me this?" "I tried, sir. But Mrs. Victoria threatened me, said she would fire me, make sure I couldn't get another job, that my family would pay the price." "And when Lisa got pregnant?" "Mrs. Victoria intercepted all her letters and phone calls. She always hated your wife, always thought she was after the family fortune." Richard felt he could barely breathe. "My God, what have I done?" he murmured. Devastated. "There's more, sir," said Mrs. Margaret nervously. "I kept something all these years. I didn't have the courage to show before, but..." The housekeeper left and returned minutes later with an old shoebox. Inside, dozens of letters, all with the same sender, Lisa M. Silver. "Your sister ordered everything burned, but I couldn't bring myself to do it," she explained, with trembling hands. Richard opened the first letter, dated just a month after Lisa's departure. "Dear Richard, I know you hate me now, but the truth is I'm carrying your children. The doctor confirmed yesterday. They're twins, a boy and a girl. Please give me a chance to prove I never cheated on you. Get a new test. Seek a second medical opinion. Something is wrong with your results. I still love you, Lisa." Letter after letter, Lisa begged for a chance to be heard. She told about the pregnancy, the birth, the twins' first steps. In some, there were small photos. 2 newborn babies, Michael taking his first steps, Claire smiling without her front teeth. Moments he had missed because he believed a lie. The last letter was from just 2 years ago. "Richard, this will be my last attempt. For 8 years I've written without response. The twins ask about their father, and all I can say is that you didn't believe me. If you ever read these words, know that your children are wonderful. Michael has your eyes and your intelligence. Claire has your smile and your determination. We're going through difficult times. I lost my job at the diner and the rent increased. But we'll survive. We always do. If you ever want to meet them, don't blame them for my mistakes. Mistakes I never made, Lisa." Tears flowed freely down Richard's face. 10 years. 10 years of lies and manipulation. 10 years denying his own children, while they and Lisa struggled to survive. And his sister, his own sister, orchestrating everything. "Where is Victoria now?" he asked, with a calmness that didn't match the storm in his chest. "At the country house, sir. She went there yesterday." Richard stood up, determined. "Call Dr. Miller. Tell him I need him urgently, and Dr. Adams, my lawyer too. We have a lot of work to do." The next day, Richard was at the Norfolk County Women's Detention Center, using all his influence to get an extraordinary visit. His heart was beating so hard, it felt like it would come out of his mouth when the guards brought her in. Lisa had lost a lot of weight. Her face, once full of life, was thin and marked by deep dark circles. Her hair, once long and silky, was short and dull. But her eyes were still the same ones that had enchanted him when they met in college 15 years ago. She looked at him with surprise, then with suspicion, and finally with a mixture of anger and hurt. "What are you doing here?" she asked, sitting across from him. "Lisa." His voice failed. How to begin asking forgiveness for 10 years of absence? "I saw our children." She paled. "What did you do to them? If you took them away from Connie, I swear I'll—" No, he quickly interrupted. "They're fine. They're at the shelter. I've been going there as a volunteer." Volunteer? Lisa laughed humorlessly. The great Richard Montgomery volunteering at a children's shelter? That's rich. Lisa, I discovered everything. The tests, the letters, Victoria's manipulation. I know you never cheated on me. I know the twins are my children. She observed him in silence for a few seconds. 10 years, Richard. 10 years too late. I know. And I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. But I want to help. I'm going. To get you out of here, I'm going to take care of the children. I'm going to... You don't understand, do you? She interrupted, her voice heavy with emotion. It's not about money. It never was. You threw me out like I was garbage. You slandered me, blocked me, used your influence to prevent me from getting decent jobs. I had to raise our children alone, living on miserable wages while you continued your perfect life in your mansions. Richard lowered his head, each of her words like a knife in his chest. You're absolutely right, he finally said. I don't deserve your forgiveness or your trust, but Michael and Claire deserve a father, and you deserve to get out of this prison and rebuild your life. Let me at least do that. Lisa studied him for long seconds. What exactly are you proposing? First, I'm going to get the best lawyers to reverse your sentence. Then when you get out, I want to offer a house for the three of you, a monthly allowance for your needs and the possibility of you resuming your architecture studies. And in exchange, the chance to know and be part of my children's lives. I'm not asking for their custody. I don't want to take them away from you. I just want the opportunity to be a father, even if very belatedly. Lisa sighed deeply. I would never prevent my children from knowing their father, she finally said. But take it slow. They're children who have already suffered a lot. They can't handle more disappointments. I promise I won't disappoint them, or you never again. When he left the detention center, Richard had a plan and a new mission in life. The first part, confronting Victoria. The Montgomery country house was located in an isolated area on the outskirts of Wellesley. Surrounded by dense vegetation and away from neighbors, it was Victoria's preferred retreat when she wanted to isolate herself. Richard arrived in the late afternoon. He found his sister on the porch, drinking wine and reading a book, apparently, without worries. Hello, little brother, she said, seeing him. What a pleasant surprise. What brings you here? You know very well what brings me here, Victoria, replied Richard coldly. Victoria's smile faltered. I don't know what you're talking about. Richard threw Lisa's letters on the table, scattering them. I'm talking about this, and about the falsified medical exams, and about my children who grew up without a father because of you. The color drained from Victoria's face. You don't understand, she began. Then explain to me, exclaimed Richard, hitting the table. Explain to me why you ruined my life, Elisa's life and my children's lives. Victoria stood up, nervous. She didn't deserve you, never deserved you. She was an opportunist like all the others. She only wanted our money, our social position. Lisa never cared about money, you know that. She even refused the wedding gift that Dad wanted to give us. Just to appear noble, retorted Victoria. You were too naive to see, but I could perceive her intentions. When I discovered she was pregnant, I knew it was the perfect chance to rid you of her. So you falsified my medical tests. You paid Dr. Ferreira to lie to me. Victoria didn't deny it. I did what I had to do to protect you and our family. No, Victoria, you did what you did out of jealousy and control. You manipulated my life for 10 years, deprived me of knowing my children, condemned Lisa and the kids to poverty. For what? To keep me under your control. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, interrupted Richard. You never got over our parents' death. You assumed the role of protector, and that turned into an obsession. But it's over, Victoria. Tomorrow I'll transfer your shares in the company to your name, and you'll receive your inheritance in full. But I want you out of my life, and out of my children's lives. You can't do that, she shouted. The company is ours. It's our family's legacy. The company will continue, but without you. Consider yourself officially removed from any administrative function. You'll regret this, Richard, threatened Victoria, trembling with anger. I'll sue you. I'll contest everything. You can try, he responded calmly. but I doubt you want the board, the shareholders, and the press to know what you did. Falsification of medical documents, mail obstruction, slander, defamation. It wouldn't look good for the traditional Montgomery family, would it? Victoria paled even more. You wouldn't do that. Try to challenge me and you'll find out, said Richard, turning to leave. Oh, and Victoria. They're beautiful. My children. Michael has my eyes and Claire has her mother's smile. You stole 10 years of them from me. I won't let you steal even one more day. In the following days, Richard mobilized his entire legal team. Dr. Adams, his personal lawyer, took Lisa's case and in just a week managed to get a sentence review. The judge, faced with new evidence that Lisa was a single mother with 2 small children and had no criminal record beyond the food thefts, converted the sentence to community service. On the day Lisa was released, Richard was waiting for her at the exit of the detention center. You didn't have to come, she said, seeing him. Yes, I did, he replied. I have a lot to make up for. Richard took her to an apartment he had rented in the city center, furnished, spacious, comfortable, but without excesses. It's temporary, he explained, until we decide on a more permanent arrangement for you and the children. I didn't want to buy anything without consulting you first. Lisa looked around, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. It's strange, all of this, after so long. I know, for me too. Richard hesitated. Lisa, now that you're free, when would you like to see the children? Her eyes filled with tears. Right now, can you take me to them? The reunion between Lisa and her children at the shelter was heartbreaking. Michael and Claire ran into their mother's arms as soon as they saw her, crying and laughing at the same time. Connie, the temporary guardian, watched with tears in her eyes while Richard maintained a respectful distance, allowing the family to have their moment. You've grown so much, said Lisa, through tears, hugging her children tightly. I missed you so much. You're not going away again, are you, Mum? Asked Claire with teary eyes. Never again, my love, never again. After the initial hugs and tears, Connie took the children to gather their few belongings, leaving Lisa and Richard alone in the small administration room. Thank you, said Lisa, breaking the silence, for bringing them back to me. Don't thank me, it's the least I could do. Lisa hesitated. When do you plan to tell them who you are? Richard sighed. Whenever you think the time is right. They need to adapt to having you back first. I don't want to confuse them even more. Lisa nodded. You've changed, Richard. 10 years is a long time. And discovering I have 2 wonderful children who grew up without me while I lived in a bubble of lies. That changes anyone. That night, Lisa and the children settled into the new apartment. Richard ensured nothing was missing. Food in the refrigerator, new clothes in the closets, age-appropriate toys, quality school supplies, all without ostentation, but with enough comfort. I'll leave you to get settled, he said, preparing to leave. If you need anything, just call. I left my number on the refrigerator. Lisa walked him to the door. The children like you, she commented. Michael told me you helped him with math at the shelter. He's brilliant, learns everything very quickly. Yes, he's always been that way. Lisa hesitated. Richard, I don't want them to get attached to you and then you disappear when the guilt passes. That won't happen, he assured her firmly. They're my children, Lisa. I want to be their father for the rest of my life. In the following weeks, Richard maintained a respectful distance, but began to be part of the family's routine. He took the children to school every morning before going to the office. On weekends, he took them to the park, to the movies, to educational exhibitions. Always with Lisa's permission, always returning them at the agreed time. Slowly, a new dynamic began to establish itself. Michael, initially suspicious, began to open up more, asking questions about business, about how a company worked, showing a natural curiosity about the world Richard inhabited. Claire, more affectionate, soon began to wait for him with hugs and drawings she made especially for him. Lisa observed this approach with conflicting feelings. On one hand, she was happy to see her children finally getting to know their father. On the other, she feared that Richard would eventually get tired or worse, try to take custody away from her. Dear listener, If you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. A month after Lisa's release, Richard invited her for coffee after dropping the children off at school. "I have a proposal for you," he said, after they sat down in a quiet cafe. "What kind of proposal?" "I want you to go back to school, to complete the architecture course you abandoned when we were together." Lisa stared at him, surprised. "Why?" "Because it was your dream, and because you have too much talent to waste." "Richard, I'm almost 40. I have 2 children to raise. I can't just go back to being a college student." "Yes, you can. I've already spoken with the dean of the state university. You can resume the course where you left off. We would make an arrangement so you could study during the children's school hours, and I would help financially, of course." Lisa seemed divided. "I don't know if I want to be dependent on you." "It's not dependency, Lisa. It's your and our children's right. I failed you for 10 years. Let me help now. And what if you change your mind again? If you decide you no longer want to be part of our lives?" Richard looked her in the eyes. "That won't happen. But I understand your concern. That's why I've already instructed my lawyers to prepare legal documents. A trust fund for Michael and Claire, guaranteeing their education through graduate school, if they wish. And an agreement for you, ensuring permanent financial support, regardless of anything that happens between us." Lisa took a deep breath, considering the proposal. "I need to think about it." "Of course. No rush." 2 days later, while they were having dinner together, something that was becoming increasingly frequent, Michael asked the question they both feared. "Mr. Richard, why do you spend so much time with us?" Richard and Lisa exchanged glances. "I really enjoy your company," Richard answered cautiously. "But don't you have a family?" insisted the boy. "Michael, don't be indiscreet," Lisa warned. "It's okay," said Richard. He took a deep breath. "Actually, Michael, I do have a family." Lisa's heart raced. Was this the moment? "Do you have children?" asked Claire innocently. "I do." Richard looked at Lisa, seeking permission in her eyes. She nodded slightly. "I have 2 wonderful children." The children looked around, confused. "Where are they?" asked Claire. Richard smiled nervously. "They're here, in this room." The silence that followed was dense. Michael was the first to understand, his blue eyes widening. You're our father?" Richard felt his throat tighten. "Yes, Michael. I am your father." Claire looked at her mother, seeking confirmation. "Is it true, Mom?" Lisa nodded, with tears in her eyes. "It's true, dear." But Michael seemed confused and hurt. "If you're our father, why were you never with us before? Why did you let us go hungry? Why did you leave Mom alone?" Each question was like a dagger in Richard's heart. "Because I made a terrible mistake, son. Your mother and we separated before you were born. And I didn't know you existed. I was deceived by someone who didn't want us to be a family." "Who?" asked Michael, now with evident anger. "My sister, your Aunt Victoria." "Is she mean?" asked Claire. Richard hesitated. "She did very wrong things," he finally said. "But what's important is that I now know the truth. I know you're my children, and I very much want to be a real father to you, if you'll give me that chance." Michael remained silent, visibly processing everything. Claire, more emotional, reacted first. "So now we're all going to live together, like a real family?" Lisa intervened. "Not exactly, Claire. Your father and I aren't together as a couple, but he wants to be part of your lives, to be a present father." "Can I call you Dad?" asked Claire, looking anxiously at Richard. His eyes filled with tears. "Nothing would make me happier, daughter." Claire got up and ran to hug him. Richard received her in his arms, unable to contain his emotion. Michael, however, remained in his place with a closed expression. "Michael!" called Lisa, concerned. "I need some time," said the boy, getting up from the table. "Can I go to my room?" "Of course, son," replied Lisa. When Michael left, Richard looked desolately at Lisa. "He hates me." "No, he doesn't hate you. He's just hurt and confused. Michael has always been very protective of me. He saw all our suffering in recent years. Should I leave? No. Give him time. Later, after Claire fell asleep, Richard asked permission to talk to Michael. He found his son sitting on the bed, leafing through one of the books he had given him. "May I come in?" Michael shrugged. "It's your apartment." "No, Michael, it's your apartment. I'm just temporarily paying the rent." Richard sat on the edge of the bed. "I know it's a lot to process." "You abandoned us," said Michael directly. "Mom worked 3 jobs. Sometimes we had nothing to eat. Claire got sick once and we didn't have money for medicine." Each word was like a knife in Richard's chest. "I know, and I will never forgive myself for that. If I had known..." "Mom says she tried to tell you. Says she wrote letters." "That's true. My sister intercepted all of them. I only discovered them recently." "And why did you believe her and not Mom?" A simple question, but devastating. "Because I was foolish and proud. Because I trusted the wrong person and distrusted who really loved me." Richard looked into his son's eyes. "And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make it up to you for that." Michael was silent for some time. "I know I don't have the right to ask, but I would very much like to be part of your life, Michael, to be your real father. And what if you give up again?" "I won't give up. Never again. You and your sister are the most important thing in my life now." Michael slowly closed the book. "I'll think about it." It wasn't a warm embrace like Claire's, but it was a start. In the following weeks, the relationship with his children evolved in different ways. Claire accepted him completely, calling him Dad from the first day, running into his arms whenever she saw him. Michael, on the other hand, maintained a cautious distance, calling him Mr. Richard, and observing his every move with suspicion. Richard respected his son's pace, never forcing an intimacy that Michael wasn't ready to offer. At the same time, he remained constant, present in all important moments, showing that he wouldn't easily give up. With Lisa, the situation was even more complex. The years of separation and suffering had created a barrier that neither knew how to overcome. There were moments of closeness, shared smiles when they saw something cute the children did, conversations, late into the night after the little ones were asleep. But there were also heavy silences, loaded with painful memories and frustrated expectations. On one of these nights, after the children went to sleep, Lisa finally made a decision. "I'll accept your proposal," she said, as they shared tea on the apartment's balcony. "I'm going to go back to studying architecture." Richard smiled, genuinely happy. "That's wonderful, Lisa. You'll be a brilliant architect. But with some conditions," she added. "First, I want to work. It doesn't have to be full-time, but I want to have my own income. Of course, I can help. Find something compatible with your studies. Second, we need to legally establish paternity of the children. DNA test, formal recognition, everything official." Richard nodded, serious. "I've already asked Dr. Adams for that. The papers are being prepared. And third," Lisa hesitated, "I need you to understand that accepting your financial help and allowing you to be the father of our children doesn't mean we'll be a couple again." Richard felt a tightness in his chest, but kept his expression neutral. "I understand. I don't know if I can trust you that way again, Richard. Not after everything." "I completely understand, Lisa, and I respect your decision. My goal now is just to be a good father to Michael and Claire and help you rebuild your life." Lisa studied him for a moment. "You really have changed." "I had to change. When I saw our children selling flowers in that square, it was like my whole world turned upside down. All my priorities, everything I thought was important, none of it made sense compared to the fact that I had 2 children who didn't know me." 3 months passed. Lisa returned to university and got a paid internship at an architecture firm that, coincidentally, provided services to one of Richard's companies. Michael and Claire were enrolled in a good school, making new friends and making up for lost time of a normal childhood. Richard rigorously fulfilled his promise to be present. They established a routine. He had dinner with the family 3 times, a week spent one day of the weekend with the children, and was always available for emergencies. He never broke his word, never arrived late, never put work above his children. Slowly, Michael's defenses began to lower. The boy started asking more questions about Richard's past, about how the company worked, about the grandparents he never knew. On one of their Sunday outings, while Claire ran ahead of them in the park, Michael finally asked the question he had been saving. "Why did you and Mom fall in love? What made you like her?" Richard smiled, remembering. "Your mother is different from anyone I've ever met. We met in college. I was studying business, she architecture. We literally bumped into each other in the library. I spilled coffee on her final semester project." "Wow, and she forgave you?" "Not immediately," Richard laughed. "She made me copy the entire project by hand, page by page. I spent 3 nights staying up late doing it. When I delivered the redone work, I invited her for coffee. Promised not to spill anything this time. And she accepted? Yes. And you know why I fell in love with her? Because your mother was never impressed by my money or social position. She challenged me, made me see the world in different ways, made me a better person." Michael thought for a moment. "But then, why did you believe she had cheated on you?" Richard sighed. "Because I was afraid, Michael. Afraid of not being good enough for her. And when I received those false tests saying I was sterile, that fear turned into certainty. Instead of trusting the person I loved, I chose to believe the worst." "Is that why you and Mom aren't together now? Because she doesn't trust you anymore?" His son's perceptiveness surprised him. "It's more complicated than that. Your mother suffered a lot because of me. Trust, once broken, is very difficult to rebuild." "But you still like her?" Richard looked at his son, realizing there was no way to lie to those eyes so similar to his own. "Yes, Michael. I still love your mother. I never stopped loving her, but sometimes love isn't enough to fix what was broken." Michael was silent for a few moments. "You know, Mom smiles more when you're around," he finally said. "She pretends she doesn't, but I notice." A ray of hope illuminated Richard's heart, but he kept his expectations in check. "Well, that's something, isn't it?" It was at that moment that Claire came running back. "Dad, come see what I found." It was the first time Michael heard his sister call Richard Dad without embarrassment. The term now seemed so natural. "Are you going, Dad?" asked Claire again, pulling Richard's hand. Richard looked at Michael as if asking permission. "You can go," said the boy. "We'll meet at the bench near the lake." When Richard walked away with Claire, Michael remained seated, thoughtful. For his entire short life, he had hated the absent figure of the father who had abandoned his mother. Now, confronted with the complex truth, he didn't know how to process his feelings. That night, at the apartment, while Lisa helped Claire with her bath, Michael approached Richard, who was organizing books on the small bookshelf in the living room. "Can I ask you something?" said the boy in a low voice. "Of course, son. Anything." "What was Grandpa like? Your father?" Richard smiled, surprised by the question. "My father was a hard-working man, started from scratch building houses. One by one until he formed the construction company. He would wake up before sunrise and only return after dark. But on Sundays," Richard smiled at the memory. "On Sundays, he was just ours. He would take me and your Aunt Victoria fishing at the lake on the farm." "You have a farm?" "Yes, the Montgomery farm. It's a bit abandoned now, but it was my father's favorite place. Maybe I can take you and Claire there someday. If your mother allows, of course." Michael nodded, thoughtful. "And Grandma?" "My mother was a teacher. She taught English at the local public school. She was strict but fair, and she made the best cornbread in the world." "I've never had cornbread," confessed Michael. "No?" Richard feigned shock. "That's unforgivable. I'll ask Mrs. Margaret to make one for you to try. She learned the recipe from my mother." For the first time since they had met, Michael smiled openly at Richard. "I would like that." The following weekend, Richard prepared a surprise. With Lisa's permission, he took the children to see the Montgomery farm. The place was indeed a bit abandoned. Richard didn't visit frequently since his parents' death, preferring to leave the administration in the hands of employees. As they walked around the property, Claire ran ahead. enchanted with the animals, with the open space, with the freedom she had never experienced, being always confined to small apartments or the shelter. Michael, more contained, observed everything with attentive eyes. "All this is yours?" he asked, impressed with the extent of the farm. "It was your grandfather's. Now it's mine. One day it will be yours and your sister's." The boy stopped, absorbing the impact of those words. "Ours? Of course. You are my children, my heirs." Michael looked around again with new eyes. "Did you know that Mom always wanted to live in the country? She used to say that one day we would have a little house with a garden, where she could plant real flowers, not just sell ones that others planted." Richard didn't know that. A pang of guilt hit him, reminding him of how many things about Lisa he had forgotten or never got to know. "Michael," he said, kneeling down to be at eye level with his son, "if you could ask for anything at all, what would it be?" The boy thought for a few moments that Mum would never have to work so hard again, that she could smile more like before. Richard felt his heart tighten. At 9 years old, his son wasn't asking for toys or trips, but for his mother's happiness. "I'll do my best to make that happen," he promised. "And you, what do you want for yourself?" Michael shrugged. "I don't know, I never thought about it." "Well, think about it. And when you know, tell me. I promise to do whatever is in my power to make it happen." On the way back to the city, the children fell asleep in the back seat of the car. Lisa, who had accompanied the outing while maintaining a careful distance, looked out the window, absorbed in thoughts. "What are you thinking about?" asked Richard, breaking the silence. "About how everything could have been different," Richard sighed. "I think about that every day. It's not your fault. Not entirely." Lisa turned to him. "Your sister manipulated everything. But I chose to believe her, not you. That responsibility is all mine." Lisa extended her hand and lightly touched his arm. "You know what hurt me the most? It wasn't you believing I had cheated on you. It was how you reacted, without conversation, without a chance to defend myself. You simply cut me out of your life as if I had never meant anything. I was devastated, Lisa. The idea that another man..." He couldn't complete the sentence. "But you're right. I should have talked, listened. It was my biggest mistake." "Yes, it was." She looked back out the window. "But that's in the past now. What's important is that you're trying to do the right thing for our children. And for you too. I want you to be happy, Lisa, regardless. Favus as a couple." She smiled slightly, still looking at the passing landscape. "I'm starting to believe that." The following Monday, during breakfast, Michael made an announcement. "I know what I want," he said, looking directly at Richard. "What is it, son?" "I want to be called Michael Montgomery Silva. I want to have your last name." Lisa dropped her spoon, surprised. Richard was speechless for a moment. "Are you sure about this, Michael?" "I am. Claire and I are your children. We should have your name too." Richard looked at Lisa, seeking her approval. "If that's what you want, Michael, it's fine by me," she said, emotional. "Claire, do you want to change your name too?" The girl, who was eating cereal, distractedly nodded. "I want to be the same as Michael and the same as Daddy." That afternoon, Richard took the paperwork to the lawyer. It wouldn't just be paternity recognition now, but an official addition of the Montgomery surname to the children's names. When he returned to the office, he found an unpleasant surprise. Victoria was waiting in his office. "What are you doing here?" he asked coldly. His sister seemed to have aged years in the last few months. She was thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, but still maintained her haughty posture. "I came to propose a deal." "We have nothing to negotiate, Victoria." "On the contrary, little brother, we have a lot." She opened her purse and pulled out a folder. "I know you're trying to clean up your name. The great Richard Montgomery, now exemplary father, responsible businessman, repentant ex-husband. But how much would you pay to keep certain details of your past from coming to light?" Richard felt his blood freeze. "What details?" "Your escapades during the marriage. The time you bribed an inspector to approve that development in the South Shore. The taxes we evaded together in 2016. So many little things, brother, that would make your new family lose all the admiration they have for you." Richard sat down, trying to stay calm. So it's blackmail now? Blackmail is an ugly word. I prefer to call it a family agreement. You give me back my place in the company, and I keep your little flaws secret. Richard stared at her for long seconds. Do what you want, Victoria. There's nothing you could say that would make me distance myself from the children or betray the trust that Lisa is slowly rebuilding in me. Are you sure? Even if I tell how you spent that weekend in Cape Cod with the secretary while Lisa was visiting her parents? Richard paled. How did you? I always knew everything, little brother. It was my job to know, to protect you and the company. That was more than 10 years ago, Victoria. I was a different man. So what? Do you think your little saint will forgive that too? A man who cheats on his wife and then accuses her of infidelity. Victoria laughed humorlessly. You know her better than I do. What do you think? Richard stood up, decisive. I think I'm going to tell the truth before you do. The whole truth. About me, about you, about everything. You wouldn't dare. I've been facing many fears lately. I discovered that courage comes when we have something truly important to protect. Richard walked to the door and opened it. Goodbye, Victoria. I suggest you use the money you received well. It will be the last contact we'll have. That night, after the children went to bed, Richard asked to talk to Lisa. They sat on the balcony, as they often did in recent weeks. I need to tell you something, he began, his voice heavy with apprehension. Something from our past that I never confessed. Lisa looked at him cautiously. What is it? Richard took a deep breath and told her about Cape Cod, about the secretary, about how he had betrayed her trust long before accusing her of infidelity. He told it without apologizing, without trying to justify, just presenting the facts as they were. When he finished, Lisa was silent, looking at the illuminated city below. Why are you telling me this now? She finally asked. Because Victoria threatened to tell, and because I don't want any more secrets between us. I don't want anything from the past coming back to haunt us. Us? Lisa raised an eyebrow. You talk as if there's still an us. Richard looked at her directly. I don't know if there is, Lisa. I just know I can't continue trying to rebuild your trust on more lies. You deserve to know everything. Lisa remained silent for so long that Richard began to prepare to leave, assuming he had put a definitive end to any possibility between them. I knew, she said finally. What? I knew about Cape Cod. Your secretary let it slip, accidentally. It was a few months before I got pregnant. Richard stared at her, shocked. You knew and you never said anything? What should I have said? Hey, I know you cheated on me. Let's talk about it. I was devastated, Richard. I thought about confronting. You thought about leaving. But then I found out I was pregnant and thought that maybe... She shrugged. I thought maybe a child would save us. That you would change when you became a father. Lisa, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. It was a long time ago. We were different people. Did you forgive me? Back then? Lisa smiled sadly. I was trying to. Then came your accusation, which was the final blow. The irony was almost comical. Me forgiving your real betrayal, while you accused me of an imaginary betrayal. Richard felt the weight of that revelation like a truck on his chest. I really ruined everything, didn't I? Yes, she replied honestly. But you know what I learned, Richard? Life rarely gives us what we want when we want it. Sometimes we need to lose everything to value what we had. Do you think, he hesitated, do you think you could ever forgive me completely? I already have, she said, surprising him. I couldn't let you be part of my children's lives if I still held that grudge. The forgiveness wasn't for you. It was for me so I could move forward. And what about us? Is there any chance? Lisa stood up, walking to the balcony railing. I don't know, Richard. There are moments when I see the man I fell in love with. There are others when I can only remember the pain. I need more time. I understand and I respect that. He also stood up. I'll be going then. Tomorrow I'll come by to take the children to school. When he was already at the door, Lisa called him. Richard, thank you for telling the truth, even if belatedly. In the following months, a new routine was established. Michael and Claire now spent 2 weekends a month at the Montgomery farm. Lisa used this time to study or meet friends, rediscover pleasures she had abandoned during the difficult years. Richard, in turn, began to reorganize his professional life. Tired of the long hours at the office, he decided to form a new management team, delegating more responsibilities and dedicating less time to business. One afternoon, while working in his home office, he received an unexpected visit. It was Michael, who had come straight from school. "Michael, did something happen?" "No, Dad, I just wanted to talk." Richard smiled, hearing the "dad" naturally come from his son's lips. At some point in recent months, Michael had started calling him that without anyone needing to force it. "Of course, son, what do you want to talk about?" "About your work. What exactly do you do?" Richard laughed. "Why the sudden interest?" "At school, we had to write an essay about our parents' professions. I said you're a businessman, but I don't really know what that means." Richard felt a wave of affection for his son. It was the first time Michael showed real interest in his professional life. "Well, I manage a company that builds houses and buildings. We buy land, plan what will be built, hire engineers and workers, and then sell or rent what was built." "Like that new building downtown that has your name?" "Exactly, the Montgomery building." "Cool." Michael seemed genuinely impressed. "And did you always want to do this?" "Actually, no. When I was young, I wanted to be a pilot." "Airplane pilot?" "Formula One driver." Richard laughed at his son's surprised expression. "I was obsessed with fast cars. I still have a sports car kept in the office garage, you know?" Michael's eyes lit up. "Can I see it someday?" "Of course you can." "And why did you give up? Being a driver?" Richard's smile diminished a little. "My father got sick when I was 19. I had to take over the family business. The company was almost bankrupt at the time." "And you saved it?" "Yes, with a lot of work, and with help from your Aunt Victoria, to be fair." Richard hesitated. "Michael, you know your aunt did many wrong things, but she wasn't always like that. There was a time when we were very close." Michael nodded, thoughtful. "Mom said that sometimes people become bad when they're very afraid of losing what they love." Richard raised his eyebrows, surprised. "Your mother said that? About Victoria?" "Yes, she said Aunt Victoria was afraid of losing you and the company, and that made her do terrible things." "Your mother is a very wise woman," commented Richard, moved by Lisa's ability to understand even those who had harmed her. "Dad?" Michael suddenly seemed nervous. "Are you and Mom going to get back together?" The question caught Richard by surprise. "I don't know, son. Why do you ask?" "Because you seem happy when you're together, and because Claire sometimes cries at night, saying she wishes we were a normal family." Richard felt his heart tighten. "Michael, you are a normal family. Just because your mother and I don't live together doesn't mean we aren't a family. Families come in many different formats." "I know, but you still like her, don't you?" Richard pondered how to respond honestly without creating unrealistic expectations. "Yes, I still love your mother. I never stopped loving her. But sometimes love isn't enough. We need trust too. And that's something that needs to be rebuilt with time and patience." "You're trying, aren't you, to win back her trust?" "I'm trying to be the best father possible for you and the best friend possible for your mother. The rest, only time will tell." Michael seemed satisfied with the answer. "You know, Dad, I used to hate you. When Mom would tell how you kicked her out of the house, I imagined that one day I would find you and give you a really hard punch." Richard couldn't help but smile. "And now I'm happy you came back, even if it was late." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The relationship between everyone continued to evolve gradually. On the twins' 10th birthday, Richard organized a big party at the Montgomery farm. There were clowns, a pool, a small amusement park set up especially for the occasion. Distant. Relatives, school friends, neighbors from the shelter where they had temporarily lived. Everyone was invited. Lisa, initially reluctant about so much ostentation, ended up giving in when she saw the children's joy. "Don't you think you're spoiling them too much?" she asked Richard as they watched the children playing. "Probably. But they deserve a special celebration. 10 years is an important milestone. Yes, a milestone you missed 9 times. Richard looked at her, surprised by the sharp comment. I'm sorry, Lisa immediately said. That was unnecessary. No, you're right. I missed 9 birthdays, and first steps, and first words, and first days of school. Richard sighed. But I'm here now, and I intend to be here for all the next milestones. Lisa smiled slightly. I know. You've been consistent. The children count on you now. And you? Do you count on me too? She looked at him for a long time. I'm learning to count, Richard, day by day. Later, after most of the guests had already left, Richard found Lisa sitting alone on a bench under a large mango tree. He approached cautiously. May I join you? She nodded, making room on the bench. For a few minutes they sat in silence, watching the sky that was beginning to darken. The children loved the party, she commented finally. I'm glad. That's what I wanted. You've been a good father, Richard. Better than I expected, to be honest. Thank you, that means a lot coming from you. Silence returned, more comfortable this time. I've been thinking, Lisa began. Maybe you were right about the farm. How so? About bringing the children to live here. They love this place, and it would be good for them to have more space, fresh air, nature. Richard felt his heart race. Are you considering moving here? I'm considering what would be best for Michael and Claire. She looked at him. And maybe for us too. Us, Lisa sighed. Richard, in the last few months you've been constant, reliable, present. You've changed, or maybe you've gone back to being the man I fell in love with, and She hesitated. I think I still feel something for you. Richard had to control himself to not show the whirlwind of emotions. Those words provoked. And what do you want to do about it? I don't know, it's complicated. We have 2 children to think about if we try again and it doesn't work out. I understand your concern, he said, but maybe we can take it slow. 1 step at a time. Like what? Like dinner, just the 2 of us, without the children. Lisa laughed. Are you asking me on a date, Mr. Montgomery? I am, Miss Silver, and I promise not to spill coffee on you this time. Her smile was like the sunrise. I would like that. The following month, Lisa and the children moved to the Montgomery farm. Not to the main house where Richard lived, but to a smaller house on the property, a former manager's house that was completely renovated, according to plans Lisa herself designed. It was an unusual arrangement, but it worked for them. Richard visited daily, had dinner with the family most nights, but respected the space and time Lisa had asked for. Meanwhile, important changes were happening in both their professional worlds. Lisa, inspired by her architecture studies and the new life in the country, developed a project for sustainable, low-cost housing. She presented the idea to Richard, initially just seeking feedback. This is brilliant, Lisa, he said after examining the projects. It's exactly the kind of initiative our company should embrace. Our company? Richard smiled, noticing the slip. Sorry, Montgomery Developments. But come to think of it, why not our company? Your talent as an architect combined with our structure, we could create a new division focused on sustainable and accessible housing. Lisa's eyes shone. Are you serious? Completely. In fact, I've been thinking about diversifying our investments. I'm tired of just building luxury condominiums and shopping centers. Weeks later, New Beginnings was born, a subsidiary of Montgomery Developments, with Lisa as creative director. The pilot project would be built in the outskirts of Boston, 50 sustainable homes for low-income families, with facilitated financing. Michael and Claire followed everything with interest. Michael, especially, spent hours in the improvised office Lisa had set up at home, fascinated by the projects and the models. Would you like to be an architect like your mother? Asked Richard, seeing him so interested. I don't know, I like math and physics, maybe an engineer. That would be an excellent choice. We always have to hire engineers for your mother's projects. Then we could all work together, exclaimed Michael, excited. You, me, and Mom. Richard smiled, touched by the idea of a future where the family would work together. And your sister? Claire wants to be a veterinarian, to take care of the farm animals. Well, that would be useful around here too. The following night, after an especially pleasant dinner, Richard invited Lisa for a walk under the stars. They walked in silence around the property until they reached a small hill overlooking the lake. "Remember this place?" he asked. Lisa smiled. "How could I forget? This is where you proposed to me 14 years ago. I was so nervous I almost dropped the ring in the water." "And you promised me the moon and the stars," she completed, looking at the sky. "Promises I didn't keep. Not all of them. You gave me 2 wonderful children." She looked at him. "And a second chance I never imagined we would have." Richard took her hand gently. "Lisa, these last few months have been transformative. Rediscovering you, getting to know our children, understanding what really matters in life. For me too. Seeing you becoming the father I always knew you could be, and the man I fell in love with so many years ago. I love you, Lisa. I never stopped loving you. Even in the years I tried to hate you deep down, it was love disguised as hurt. I know," she squeezed his hand. "I love you too, Richard. It's scary to admit that after everything, but it's true." "Scary? Why?" "Because I'm afraid. Afraid to trust again, to give myself again, and then—" "I understand that fear," he gently interrupted, "and I promise I'll never give you reasons to feel fear or distrust again. But I can't promise we'll be perfect. I can only promise that this time we'll face everything together with honesty." Lisa moved closer, resting her head on his shoulder. "That's enough for me." That night, for the first time in 10 years, Lisa didn't return to her house on the whole property. The next day, the children found the 2 of them having coffee together on the porch of the main house, holding hands and with shy smiles on their faces. "Does this mean what I think it means?" asked Michael, perceptive as always. "Depends on what you think," replied Richard, trying to maintain seriousness. "That your boyfriend and girlfriend again?" exclaimed Claire, jumping with joy. Lisa blushed. "We're rediscovering our feelings," she said cautiously, "taking one day at a time." "But that's good, isn't it?" insisted Claire. "Now we'll be a real family." "Darling, we're already a real family," corrected Lisa. "With or without romance, between me and your father." "But it's better with romance," opined Michael, surprising everyone with his frankness. "You seem happier together." Richard and Lisa exchanged glances, unable to disagree. 6 months later, the house that had once belonged to just the farm manager was empty. Lisa and the children had completely moved into the main house. Life wasn't perfect. There were occasional arguments, necessary adaptations, painful memories that sometimes emerged. But there was also a lot of love, respect, and the determination of 2 adults who knew the value of what they had lost and recovered. The New Beginnings project was in full swing, with the first community almost ready. Lisa spent half the week in the city, supervising the construction, while Richard took care of the children. In the other half, they reversed roles. It was an unusual arrangement for a couple of their social position, but it worked for them. On a rainy afternoon, while they were working together in the home office, Richard received an unexpected call. "Richard Montgomery," he answered professionally. "Mr. Montgomery, this is Dr. Marina Bonfim's assistant from St. Clair Hospital. I have a patient who asked me to contact you." "Patient? Who is it?" "Your sister, sir. Victoria Montgomery." Richard straightened in his chair, tense. "What happened?" "She was admitted with a delicate health condition. She specifically asked to speak with you." After hanging up, Richard remained silent, processing the information. He hadn't spoken with Victoria since the confrontation in the office almost a year ago. "Everything okay?" asked Lisa, noticing his expression. "Victoria is in the hospital. She asked to see me." "And are you going?" "I don't know. After everything she did." Lisa approached, placing her hand on his shoulder. "She's still your sister, Richard. Your only blood family. You and the children are my family now." "Yes, we are. And that's why we can give you the strength you need to do what's right." Lisa hesitated. "I know what she did was terrible, but maybe it's time to forgive. Not for her, but for yourself." Richard looked at the amazing woman by his side, amazed by her capacity for compassion. "How do you manage, after everything she did to you?" "It wasn't easy, it still isn't. But I discovered that resentment only poisoned me from within. By forgiving, I freed myself." That afternoon, Richard went to St. Clair Hospital. He found Victoria in a private room, looking fragile and much smaller than he remembered. "You came," she said with a weak voice. "I did. How do you feel?" "Like someone who spent the last year living on resentment and regret." She tried to sit up. "The doctors say I had a warning, but that I can recover if I completely change my lifestyle." "That's good, Victoria." An uncomfortable silence settled between them. "Why did you call me here?" Richard finally asked. Victoria took a deep breath. "To apologize for everything, for the lies, the manipulation, for separating you from your family for so long." Richard studied his sister's face, looking for signs of falsehood. He found none. "Why, Victoria, why did you do all that?" She looked away, staring at the window. "Fear, I guess. After our parents died, you were all I had left. I was afraid of losing you to Lisa, to a new family you would form without me." Victoria wiped away a tear. "I didn't realize that, trying to avoid losing you, I ended up pushing you away forever." "Not forever," said Richard, surprising himself. "I'm here now. But you'll never forgive me." "I don't know, Victoria. I don't know if I can. You stole 10 years of my children, years that will never come back. I know. And I'll have to live with that for the rest of my life." She hesitated. How are they? Your children?" Richard couldn't help but smile. "Michael is brilliant, observant, intelligent, loyal. He has my eyes and his mother's strong personality. Claire is pure light, kind, loving, sees the best in everyone. She looks so much like Lisa when she smiles that it sometimes hurts to look. They sound like wonderful children. They are. The best. And you and Lisa? We're good, building something new." Victoria nodded, resigned. "I'm happy for you, brother, truly." As Richard prepared to leave, Victoria called him again. "Richard, if one day you can forgive me enough, I would like to meet my niece and nephew, even if just once." Richard didn't answer immediately. "Let's take it slow, Victoria. One step at a time." On the way back home, Richard reflected on forgiveness, second chances, and how life could completely change in a year. When he arrived, at the farm he found Lisa and the children planting flowers in the front garden. "How was it?" asked Lisa, seeing him. "Better than I expected. Worse than I'd like." He looked at his children, dirty with soil and smiling. She asked to meet them someday. "And what did you answer?" "That we need time." Lisa nodded, understanding. "The decision is yours. We'll support whatever you choose." That night, lying next to Lisa, Richard felt at peace for the first time in many years. It wasn't a perfect peace. There were still issues to resolve, wounds to heal, trust to rebuild. But it was a real peace, built day by day, choice after choice. "What are you thinking about?" asked Lisa, noticing his contemplative silence. "About how lucky we are despite everything. About how we almost lost everything but found a way back." "Do you believe in destiny?" Richard smiled. "I don't know. But I believe some people are destined to be together, no matter how many detours. Life puts in the way, like us, exactly like us." Outside, a gentle rain began to fall, the sound of droplets on the roof forming a comforting melody. "You know what I love most about you?" asked Richard. "What?" "Your capacity to forgive, to see the good in people, even after everything." Lisa snuggled closer to him. "I learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting the past. It's about not letting it control our future." A year later, the Montgomery farm was unrecognizable. The main house had been completely renovated, with a personal project by Lisa that maintained the historic structure but brought light and modernity to the spaces. The garden, once abandoned, now flourished under Claire's dedicated care, who, at 11 years old, already showed talent for botany. The New Beginnings project had grown to 3 communities in different cities in Massachusetts. and was beginning to gain national recognition as a model of sustainable housing for low income. Lisa had completed her architecture course and now divided her time between the creative direction of the company and lectures about social architecture across the country. Richard had rediscovered his passion for vintage cars and on weekends could be found in the garage restoring a 1969 Dodge Charger, always with Michael by his side, learning every detail about mechanics. On a Sunday afternoon, while the family was having lunch in the garden, Richard made an announcement. "I invited someone to visit us today." He looked nervously at Lisa, who already knew what it was about. "Your Aunt Victoria." Michael and Claire exchanged surprised looks. "The mean aunt who separated you and Mom?" asked Claire, direct as always. "Claire," Lisa reprimanded, "we don't talk about people like that." "Sorry, Mom." "Yes, Claire, it's the aunt who made serious mistakes in the past," explained Richard, patiently. "But she's been trying to change, and she's my only sister, your only aunt." "We don't have to accept the invitation if you don't want to," added Lisa. "It's a family decision." Michael, now 11 years old, but with the maturity of someone who lived more than his age indicated, was the first to speak. "I think we should meet her. Everyone deserves a second chance, right? Like you had, Dad." Richard felt his chest tighten with pride. His son had understood a lesson that many adults never learn. "And you, Claire, what do you think?" The girl shrugged. "If Michael goes, I'll go too." The meeting was initially tense. Victoria, visibly nervous, brought gifts for the children, books for Michael, a gardening set for Claire. The children thanked her politely but kept their distance. Lisa was cordial but reserved, without showing the old grudge, but also without pretending an intimacy that didn't exist. As the afternoon progressed, however, the ice began to melt. Michael, always curious, asked questions about Richard and Victoria's childhood. Claire was fascinated when Victoria mentioned that she also liked gardening and had been the one who planted the roses that still bloomed on the side of the house. When Victoria was preparing to leave, Claire surprised her with a small bouquet of flowers picked from the garden. "For you to remember our house," said the girl shyly. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Claire. They're beautiful." That visit was the first of many. Slowly, Victoria found her place in the family, no longer as the manipulator she had been, but as an aunt seeking redemption. It would never be a perfect relationship, but it was genuine in its imperfection. 3 years after the meeting in the square, Richard planned a special surprise. It was their reunion anniversary, the day he had spotted his children selling flowers, the day that changed everything. While they were having coffee on the porch, as they did every morning, Richard handed Lisa a small box. "What is this?" she asked, surprised. "Open it and find out." Inside the box was a key. A key. Richard smiled mysteriously and led her to the garage, where a new minivan was parked. "What do we need another?" Lisa began, confused. "It's not for us, it's for the Hope Haven shelter. I found out their minibus is falling apart. Now they'll be able to take the children on outings more safely." Lisa hugged him, emotional. "You never cease to amaze me, you know that. And there's more." Richard led Lisa to his office, where a large map of Massachusetts was displayed on the wall. "What do you think about expanding the New Beginnings project to rural communities? Small, self-sustainable farms for families who want to leave the city." Lisa's eyes sparkled. "Like a rural resettlement program?" "Exactly. With agricultural training, quality schools nearby, technical assistance. This is brilliant, Richard." Lisa examined the map enthusiastically. "We could start here, in the Three Rivers region. The land is cheap, there are abundant water resources." Richard observed his wife with admiration. This was the real miracle, not just having found each other again, but having discovered a new form of connection, based not only on the love of the past, but on shared visions for the future. Later that day, the whole family, including Victoria, who was now a regular presence in their lives, gathered for a barbecue in the garden. While the children played soccer on the lawn, the adults talked under the shade of a tree. "I never imagined we would all be together like this again," commented Victoria, with a mixture of melancholy and gratitude. Life is full of surprises, replied Lisa. Some bad, some good. Like seeing two children selling flowers in the square, added Richard, looking fondly at his children. You know what's amazing, said Lisa, following his gaze. If we hadn't separated, if we hadn't gone through all this, maybe Michael and Claire wouldn't be the incredible people they are today. Maybe we would just be another rich and complacent family. Do you think the suffering was necessary? Asked Victoria hesitantly. I think life rarely follows the path we plan, replied Lisa. But if we're open, each detour can teach us something new. Michael ran up to them, breathless and smiling. Dad, come play with us. You too, Aunt Victoria. Me? Victoria seemed surprised. I don't know if I can run that much, Michael. We'll go slow, I promise, insisted the boy. As the three headed to the lawn, Lisa remained seated, observing her family. A family rebuilt from the ashes, imperfect, with scars, but genuine in its love. Claire approached, sitting next to her mother. What are you thinking about, Mom? About how lucky we are, replied Lisa, hugging her daughter. About how sometimes we need to lose something to really value it when we find it again. The girl looked at her father, who was now trying to teach Victoria how to kick the ball correctly, all of them laughing at the clumsy attempts. Like you and Dad? Yes, dear, like me and your father. Richard looked in their direction and smiled, that smile that still made Lisa's heart race, even after so many years, so much pain, so much joy. It was a smile that spoke of forgiveness, of second chances, of renewed love. Claire sighed, satisfied. I'm glad you found each other again, even if it was because of flowers. Lisa kissed the top of her daughter's head. Sometimes, dear, we just need the right flowers to change everything. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. The end of the story. And you? Have you ever felt that life gave a second chance to something important that seemed lost? Share your experience in the comments. If this story touched your heart, leave your like and subscribe to the channel to follow our next stories of overcoming and new beginnings. Your company makes all the difference in this journey.